Good morning. You know, most Americans don't know this, but as we sit here today, the United States is on the verge of launching another undeclared war. But this time, it's in our own hemisphere. There are more U.S. military assets in the Caribbean right now than at any time since the Cuban Missile Crisis. Small boats are being destroyed by American missiles and gunfire. No trial, no due process, no names, no accountability. And the justification? They're drug boats. Then in press conferences, the president said the quiet part out loud.
And our sea drugs, as they call them, they use the term sea drugs, the drugs coming in by sea, are like 5% of what they were a year ago, less than 5%. So now they're coming in by land, and even the land is concerned because I told them that's going to be next. You know, the land is going to be next. And we may go to the Senate, we may go to the, Congress and tell them about it, but I can't imagine they'd have any problem with it.
And then when asked a follow-up question if he would seek a declaration of war from Congress, he said the following.
And Mr. President, if you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay, we're going to kill them. They're going to be like dead. Okay.
Folks, that language is unacceptable. If that doesn't stop you dead in your tracks, it should. If you're going to call this law enforcement, then follow law enforcement rules, arrests, evidence, prosecution. But if you're going to call it a war or hostile action or military engagement, then the Constitution requires a vote from Congress. We cannot accept the executive branch deciding unilaterally when and where American forces kill people overseas. That's an undeclared war. Let's go back to first principles. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution gives Congress and Congress alone the power to declare war. Article 2 gives the president the power to command the armed forces once war is declared. Those powers are separate on purpose. The founders didn't want a king. They wanted consent of the governed before a single American was sent to fight. For 75 years, that principle has been ignored by the presidents of both parties: Korea, Vietnam, Libya, Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan. Everywhere our sons and daughters have been sent without a declaration of war, the results have been the same: failure, debt, lives lost for goals that nobody can define. So let me be really clear here. I believe President Trump has the right instincts. He ran on ending forever wars, bringing our troops home and putting America first. But he has momentum right now. He has the national ear. He has broad public support. And he has the political leverage of congressional majorities behind him. If he truly believes that military action in Venezuela is necessary, then this is exactly the moment to use that leverage. Have the hard conversations with Congress. Make the case in public and secure an explicit, informed authorization from the American people through their representatives. But instincts and institutions are not the same thing. The Constitution is not optional depending on who sits in the Oval Office. If a president can unilaterally decide that someone, somewhere in the world, deserves to die at the hand of the United States military without a declaration or authorization or any oversight, then our republic no longer exists in practice. It becomes government by personality, not by law. And make no mistakes, this isn't about drugs. It's about regime change. Senator Lindsey Graham admitted as much on national television. When asked if this operation is really about removing Nicolas Maduro, he said the following.
You said time for Maduro to go.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot like regime change. Are you talking about troops on the ground?
I'll let the president speak to that. I'm talking about a briefing that would expand military operations potentially from the sea to the land. It is time for Maduro to go.
Some of your Republican colleagues have been uncomfortable with what little information has been shared with Congress. Take a listen.
But if they want all-out war where we kill anybody and everybody that is in the country of Venezuela or coming out, that has to have a declaration of war. It's something that is not pretty, very expensive, and I'm not in favor of declaring war on Venezuela, but the Congress should vote. The president shouldn't do this by himself.
So this idea of Rand Paul, I just fundamentally disagree with. To the other senators, you deserve more information and you're going to get more information. But there is no requirement for Congress to declare war before the commander-in-chief can use force.
Did you hear what Lindsey Graham just said? There is no requirement for Congress to declare war before the commander-in-chief can use force. Oh, Lindsey, you have been sipping from the military-industrial complex Stanley Cup so long that I think you're actually believing your own bullshit. That's not just wrong. It's dangerous. It's unconstitutional. And when a senator who's never seen combat waves away Congress's war powers like it's a nuisance, he dishonors the men who swore to defend that Constitution with their lives. I was deployed in the Pesh River Valley in Afghanistan, and we buried too many brothers and sisters who wore that same uniform, who upheld their oath. And I can tell you firsthand, wars are not abstract. They're not talking points. They're graves. And when our elected representatives talk cavalierly about removing foreign governments without asking the American people, that's the moment citizens must stand up and say, not on our watch. And while the strikes are escalating, another threat is brewing quietly in Washington, D.C. Representative Corey Mills from Florida has reportedly circulated a draft authorization of use of military force and AUMF against narco-terrorists. This draft, according to legal experts, is insanely broad. It could authorize military action in over 60 countries, not just in Latin America, but around the world, because it doesn't define who the targets are or where they are. It lets the president use, and I quote, all necessary and appropriate force against any nation, organization, or person the White House labels as a narco-terrorist. Think about that for just a moment. That's not lawmaking. That is Congress handing the sword to the executive and saying, swing wherever you please, and we will just stroke a check and we'll pay for it, no matter how much it costs or how long it lasts. It would merge the war on terror and the war on drugs into one endless global crusade with no boundaries and no accountability. And if we've learned anything over the last 25 years, it's this. Once Washington gets a blank check for war, it never stops cashing it. But there is some good news. There are some members of Congress that still remember the oath that they took. And on October 17th, Senators Tim Kaine and Rand Paul, one Democrat and one Republican, introduced a war powers resolution to block unauthorized war in Venezuela. The resolution says plainly that Congress has the sole power to declare war under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Congress has not declared war upon Venezuela. The president is directed to terminate the use of U.S. armed forces for hostilities within or against Venezuela unless explicitly authorized by a declaration of war. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. No partisan spin, no personalities, just the law. Senator Rand Paul went on to say that the American people do not want to be dragged into endless war with Venezuela without public debate or a vote. And he is right. Senator Kaine, he said that if my colleagues disagree and they think war with Venezuela is a good idea, then they need to meet their constitutional obligations by making their case to the American people and passing an authorization. That's how a republic governs itself, folks. Not by press release, not by secret memos, but by law. And here's where this matters for every governor, every state legislature, and every National Guardsman watching this video. Every single undeclared war in modern history eventually drags in the National Guard. While the army is spread too thin across Europe and the Middle East and the Pacific and Africa, the Pentagon leans on the Guard to fill in the gaps. Airstrikes don't stop at the headlines. Strikes escalate to campaigns. Campaigns devolve into occupational pressure, and occupations require ground forces, logistics, sustainment, the kind of long-term commitments that drain our military and our national treasury. A war in our hemisphere in Venezuela could mean years of occupation pressure across Central and South America. And that burden will fall, as it always does, on the citizen soldiers who never signed up for foreign intervention. The National Guard is bound by legal framework for when and how it can be taken from the states and transferred into the service of the nation. Undeclared foreign wars is already expressly forbidden by federal law and the Constitution. But the executive branch of the federal government has clearly ignored that the law, and Congress has fecklessly allowed it for far too long. And that's why our organization, Bring Our Troops Home, is fighting for the Defend the Guard Act. It's simple. No deployment of a state's National Guard into active combat overseas unless Congress has issued a formal declaration of war. No declaration, no deployment, period. Because if Congress won't uphold its duty, then the states must. That is federalism in action. That's the people saying, you can't use our sons and daughters for your unconstitutional adventures. If this message resonates with you, if you believe that our sons and daughters deserve better than to be sent into undeclared wars, then I'm asking you personally, go to defendtheguard.us. There you can sign the petition, join our movement, and chip in a few dollars each month to help us fuel this fight in every state legislature across the country. That's how we build the army of citizens who will stand up and look Washington dead in the eye and say, you cannot take our guard. You cannot take our children. You cannot take our consent. This isn't a spectator sport, folks. A citizen's duty is to resist. Visit defendtheguard.us right now and enlist in the movement and help us finish what we've already started. We all want to stop fentanyl, and we want to stop the cartels. But facts matter, folks. Fentanyl deaths in America are overwhelmingly tied to supply chains that run from China through Mexico, not Venezuela. Cocaine, likewise, mainly originates in other South American countries like Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. If we use the drug crisis as a pretext to wage open-ended wars, we will not cure the underlying problem. We'll make it worse. Bombing foreign soil will not fix addiction in Philadelphia or Portland. The real policy path includes border enforcement, cracking down on distributors, prosecuting traffickers, targeting precursors, and curing addiction at home. So let's stop pretending this is about narcotics. It's about power. It's about projecting force without oversight and about maintaining a global empire at the expense of the republic. This movement is not anti-president. It is not anti-Trump. We are pro-Constitution. We believe Trump's instincts to end endless wars are often right. And that's exactly why we insist that he follow the Constitution. We will hold him accountable to those same principles. We believe in peace through strength, not strength without law. And our strength as a nation comes from restraint, from fidelity to our founding principles. If we let presidents, even ones whom we admire, sidestep the Constitution for good reasons, we teach the next president it's okay to do it for bad ones. The law must bind them all, or it binds none of us. So here's where we stand. We support President Trump's goal of ending the endless wars, but we oppose his unconstitutional escalation in Venezuela. We support Senator Rand Paul's courage in demanding a vote. We strongly condemn Lindsey Graham's arrogance in dismissing Congress's duty. And we demand that every state legislature in America prepare to pass Defend the Guard so that the National Guard cannot be sent into another undeclared war. If Congress wants war, make them vote. If they refuse, not one guardsman should leave our soil. That's our line in the sand. You may break us, but you're not going to bend us. The founders warned that the greatest threat to liberty is an accumulation of power in one branch of government, and that's why they divided the war powers. That's why they gave it to Congress. And that's why it's our job, yours and mine, to demand that they use it properly. So here's what I need from you. Visit defendtheguard.us right now. Sign the petition. Enlist in our movement. Chip in whatever you can, 5, 10, 25, $50 a month to keep this fight going in every state until we pass the Defend the Guard legislation nationwide. Every signature, every dollar, every share of this message is a blow for the Constitution and for the republic that our founders left for us. Defend the Guard, defend the Constitution, and defend our republic. I'm Dan McKnight, chairman of Bring Our Troops Home. Let's do our duty. Let's keep faith with the men who wore the uniform before us and the Constitution that we all swore to